What's up everybody? On today's video, we're going to be looking at the top 10 towns in Florida with the largest loss in population. We're also going to look at a few towns that haven't made the list, but that have still lost considerable amounts of their populations. Right up to 2018, there were many counties in Florida that were losing population. We're also going to look at the top 3 causes of population loss in the state of Florida. This includes immigrant groups that left, hurricanes, and of course, vacation rentals. But we're not just going to be looking at changes in population. We're going to try to understand why these communities in Florida have been losing population. If the state of Florida's population has been growing, there's no real reason for these towns to be losing people. So in today's video, we're going to try to understand why these towns are losing population. Despite Florida being one of the fastest growing states, there are actually towns here in Florida that are losing population. Anna Maria Island lost over 35% of its population. These are all $1 million and up properties. They're not going to be abandoned or boarded up. These used to be single family homes that are now appreciating in value, and they're being used as vacation or seasonal rentals. Places like Marco Island, Naples Park, and some parts of North Miami are actually showing a population loss, not because people are leaving the area, but because these are no longer single-family homes. Bigger houses, less population density, more vacation rentals, more snowbirds means that the population has to go down. We had to eliminate hundreds of coastal communities from our list to get you guys the real information, because so many of these places are losing population because other things are going on like vacation rentals. So when you see Everglades City, Marco Island, Naples Park losing population, don't be scared. It just means that now there's more vacation rentals and less full-time residents. The second large cause of population loss in Florida are hurricanes. However, some communities are able to recover from hurricanes. Take the Fort Myers and Naples area, which were destroyed by Hurricane Ian. Instead of real estate prices going down, they actually went up after Hurricane Ian. Despite this being a horrific natural disaster, a speedy response from the state and the government gave people confidence that not even a horrific hurricane could destroy the potential real estate value of this area. In the Florida Panhandle, Mexico Beach lost almost 15% of its population after Hurricane Michael. Despite this significant population loss, Mexico Beach is being rebuilt and it's going to be bigger and better than it ever was. However, while beach towns and touristy areas can get back to normal and hurricanes are only a temporary problem, some small towns further inland that don't have economical resources can be crippled by hurricanes. The final cause of population loss in Florida is because of immigration policy. The town of Fellsmore on the east coast of Florida lost 7% of its population, almost 400 people. I follow a YouTuber. When her husband got deported to Mexico, she as an American went to Mexico with him. Let's get started with our top 10 list of the places that have taken the largest population losses in Florida. Some of these numbers are really going to be shocking. Number 1 is Jasper, Florida, along with Jennings. This is on Interstate 75 as soon as you enter Florida from Georgia. This area has lost about 20% of its population, and there's a wide range of reasons why this area is losing population. For one, it's definitely not a tourist route. This part of Florida is inland, it's poor, it's dependent on agriculture, and with the population loss due to immigration combined with natural disasters, combined with the area just being in a general decline, means that this part of Florida has the worst population growth, and in fact, People are actually moving away. There's not a lot of opportunities here, and the jobs that you're going to find are going to be in prisons or in agriculture or in chicken farms, occupations that nobody wants to do. The growth of Florida has not reached this area. Moving on to number 2. Otter Creek, Florida is in the Big Bend region of Florida. 19.4% of this town's population has left. Many of the houses and businesses are now empty and sitting in ruin. The Big Bend region of Florida has counties like Citrus with overdose rates higher than the murder rate in Detroit, which means a lot of these people aren't even moving away, they're just dying from drug overdoses. People also died from COVID at rates of up to 22 times higher in some of these rural communities. Imagine that. The death rate from COVID was as much as 22 times higher in some of these rural counties as it was in areas where people simply chose to be careful. This community pretty much destroyed itself. Moving on to number 3, Chattahoochee, Florida. This is close to Alabama-Georgia border. 19.1% of the population is gone. This area has so many natural disasters that it's hard to know which one was which. But between tornadoes, hailstorms, and hurricanes, this area has its fair share of natural disasters. Agricultural work here is seasonal, and a lot of people have left to other areas where the agricultural work that they do is more permanent. And adjacent rural communities that are smaller lost a lot of people due to immigration policy since they were the ones working on the fields. This is one of those areas that has had a combination of factors destroy it, with the exception, of course, of vacation rentals. Nobody wants to stay here. And even as people are flocking to Florida, this is an area nobody wants to touch. Moving on to number 4, Bowling Green, Florida has lost almost 18% of its population. This area is solely contributing its population loss, immigrant policies that have left a huge portion of the population vacant. Despite it being in Southwest Florida, being far inland, and the economy depending on agriculture, nobody wants to move to this small rural town. Many of these towns were already struggling before they had the population loss, and even as real estate prices continue to grow, people are afraid to move to these small rural towns where the good old boys do whatever the crap they want, and the few sources of income or the types of work that nobody wants to do. But they do have good barbecue here, and the region is famed for having some of the best natural honey in the entire state of Florida. I don't know how many jars of honey you would have to sell to put a lift kit on your squatted Silverado. Number 5 is Ponce de Leon at almost 16% of its population. This little community is right off of the Interstate 10 in the Florida Panhandle. One of the cutest little historical towns that most people in Florida don't even know exist. It's really not a place that's going to keep the residents around for long. There's not a lot of work. There's nothing to do except for going to the gas station and seeing the same old nasty store clerk time and time again. And every time you go there at the same time to buy the same old hot dog, she just gives you that disgusting look because she knows that the only thing you're living off of is nasty gas station hot dogs. No wonder she doesn't like you. With just a small population, the faces can get old and redundant quite quickly. Moving on to number 6, Blountstown, Florida lost almost 10% of its population, mostly due to a hurricane that did extensive damage to the town. While the community is trying to rebuild, they are fighting and they're working hard. Not only was the town destroyed, but a lot of the agriculture and forestry land around the city was completely destroyed. Even the Chevy Caprice wants somebody from out of town to just come and take it away. We get a candy paint job, some 28 Forgiatos, and 4 kickers in the trunk. That's what I was gonna do to it, but my wife started complaining about how we're not saving any money, and every time you see an old raggedy piece of crap car, you wanna buy it. Not gonna lie, the Vogues on spokes look good on that car too. Regardless, my wife wouldn't let me buy the dang Caprice. It made our list because despite the efforts, I don't think they're gonna be able to recover. Number 7 is Springfield and Callaway. These are suburbs on the east side of Panama City, Florida. Now, Panama City Beach is a tourist destination, and Panama City is where the regular people live. Both of these areas took a huge hit. However, the eastern part of Panama City, man, these areas of Callaway and Springfield got completely destroyed. And this was already an impoverished area. These people are not all going to rebuild. They can't afford it. A lot of them are still doing it, but the vast majority of people here consider leaving after the hurricane, and those who stayed are left with an ugly mess to look at. Unfortunately, this area lost a lot of its population, and I don't think the poor communities of Springfield, Callaway, and even some parts of Panama City are going to be able to recover. Fortunately, though, on the west side of Panama City, nice little changes happening there. Lots of food trucks, new communities moving in. Number 8 is Center Hill, Florida. This area has lost almost 15% of its population. What's crazy about this town is that it's in one of the fastest growing counties in the state of Florida. Now, when I did my analytical research, some of the population estimates for this county are not verified by the census. I guess people are just throwing numbers out there to make Sumter County look like it's the fastest growing county in Florida. It might as well could be, but I'm just letting you guys know that the analytics don't seem to be backed by anything other than the people that are trying to promote these places and say that they're the fastest growing areas in Florida. Regardless, somehow, even though this is in Sumter County, the growth has not reached this little town, and I'm wondering why it lost population, because there weren't no hurricanes, there weren't large immigrant groups. Why did this town lose so many people? Could it just be that it's old, outdated, and there's nothing good going on? Number 9 is Fort Meade, which lost 9.3% of its population. Not to be confused with Fort Myers, aka Fort Myers, two totally different places. Fort Meade had a population that depended on agriculture, so when the immigration policies took place, they lost a huge percentage of their community. And being in rural South Central Florida, there's really not a lot of work to do here other than agriculture, leaving the people to drive around aimlessly all day in squatted trucks. The females say they don't like these monstrosity of pickup trucks, but it's so boring in this town that even girls that don't like squatted trucks eventually end up admitting at least it's something to look at. DeSoto, Hardy, these inland counties in Florida have been losing population, and even though Southwest Florida is growing like crazy, nobody dares to venture into these more remote parts of inland South Florida. Like number 10, Moore Haven. It's only lost 7% of its population, but if you think about it, it's in South Florida. Why would a place in South Florida be losing population? Well, for one, they even lost their Burger King. The people actually love their town, and they actually are friendly. These are some of the friendliest country people. Like, when you say Southern hospitality, you're talking about Moore Haven, Florida. These people will wave at you, talk to you, give you something to eat. These are like the best people you're going to meet in the entire state of Florida. They really are known for their real Southern hospitality. However, they don't even have a dang grocery store here. They can't keep businesses open, which means that the people that love their town are ending up moving to places like LaBelle, Clewiston, or Palm Beach County, where at least they can have access to a dang grocery store. You can get a mobile home here for under $100,000, sometimes even with an acre of land. But despite the fact it's pretty much affordable, sometimes the amount of work that these mobile homes need will cost more than what the property will ever be worth. And being in South Florida, hurricane damage is never out of the question. The town of Okeechobee also lost about 6 to 7% of its population. At least they have a bunch of stores, but Okeechobee lost people because of snowbirds and a lot of Canadians that stopped coming to Florida when their currency devalued. The town of Okeechobee has also had a lot of businesses close. They just can't get young people to move here. It's just that the real estate prices here have actually been going down as everything else is going up. They got the stores, they got the infrastructure, they're centrally located in a good spot in the middle of the state, but people just cannot make enough money to sustain a living here. And it's no surprise that in Florida, people are going to pay top dollar to be along the beaches. And these inland towns that depend on agriculture are not really going to be attractive, especially when a hurricane can come through and destroy an entire town that doesn't have the resources to rebuild. Alright guys, so finally, you guys have been asking me, when will Katie become a real estate agent? Well, she is now a real estate agent. However, her social media and her branding will be completely different from what I do here on YouTube. If you want to talk to Katie about real estate, you're going to have to send me an email, and when she's ready, I'll forward the information to her. So her social media and her branding will be completely different from what I'm doing on my channel. You can also follow her on Katie's channel. The link to her channel is on my channel's main page. She's going to be doing her own thing separately, so if you're interested in following her adventures, you can hit her up on Katie's channel, or you can simply email me. She did pass her real estate test from the state of Florida on her first try. She's been studying like crazy. So there it is. If you're interested in contacting Katie about real estate, just go to her channel